Hi everybody, I'm Julie Walker. I have the privilege of being the managing editor of AOPA Pilot Magazine and AOPA Flight Training Magazine. I also have the privilege of meeting an awful lot of wonderful people in doing the job that I do. And today is an absolutely remarkable woman, Jessica Cox, who we're going to talk to today with the topic of flying without boundaries. And one of the things that Jessica has is something most of us do have or doesn't have, are arms. And Jessica has learned to fly and is flying without arms. We also have Melissa Rudinger with us today. She is a senior vice president of our government affairs at AOPA and was instrumental in the sport pilot ruling, which is the reason that Jessica can fly. So everybody please meet Jessica Cox and Melissa Rudinger. Now, in knowing that I was going to talk to Jessica, of course, the first things I thought were, how was I going to really make a flub out of this? And the first thing that I did this afternoon is go to get Jessica a drink of water, and I handed her that drink of water. And we had to make alternative plans for that drink. Jessica can do amazing things with her life, and she started flying how many years ago?
About 4 years ago.
4 years ago, and personally I like this story. Why did you want to learn to fly? What enticed you to fly?
Well, actually, flying was my greatest fear. So I actually never imagined that I'd be a pilot. And the first time a fighter pilot, Robin Sutter, came up to me, asked if I'd like to fly, I didn't have an immediate response. But my dad was standing right beside me, and he said, she would love to.
But what was the other part of the aircraft you picked out to learn to fly in?
The air coupe?
Yes.
Well, the air coupe is an airplane that does not have rudder pedals. So it does have rudders, but everything is interconnected in the yoke. So there is no need for rudder pedals, and I can use my right foot on the yoke and my left foot on the throttle, and it handles all the tasks that's necessary to fly the plane.
And yet, I'm leading her here, you saw that air coupe where?
I saw, the first air coupe I saw was on the front page of the March 2006 issue of In Pilot magazine. And that was the start of training in the air coupe.
And the gentleman who was your flight instructor?
Glenn Davis owned the air coupe on the front page, and I contacted the editor of AOPA In Pilot magazine, and I asked, could I be put in touch with Glenn Davis? And Glenn, we talked on the phone just maybe a day or two later, and he invited to train me and teach me how to fly.
So let's go back to the fear thing. We talked about it earlier today that yes, you have fear. It's not that you're a fearless person. Talk a little bit about how you overcame that fear. Or no, you didn't use the word overcame. What did you use?
Well, I don't necessarily think that being fearless means overcoming your fear, but it means not allowing your fear to stand in the way of an opportunity. And for me, when I was first approached about flying, it was my greatest fear, but I said I can't let this fear stand in the way of this awesome opportunity. And I believe that's important with being fearless about anything, because we all have our own individual fears, but we also have a choice of whether we allow it to stand in the way of our opportunities. So.
And she doesn't really like flying commercially. She's afraid of that a little bit, but she's flown here from Tucson, Arizona, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, one of the reasons that Jessica has her certificate is because of the sport pilot ruling. And as I said, Melissa was instrumental in the 20-year effort to have the sport pilot ruling. Would you like to talk a little bit to that?
Yes, thank you. I had the opportunity to be on a panel with Jessica earlier today, and I realized really what sport pilot means. When I work in policy, and you get a little jaded inside the beltway, the day in, day out fight, and you don't get to do many things that are proactive. And a lot of people don't know the real story behind how sport pilot and light sport aircraft category came to be. But it was about a 20-year effort led by EAA and AOPA and other industry associations. And it was one of the more contentious issues, believe it or not, getting the FAA to support a smaller, lighter, easier to fly aircraft, an easier to obtain certificate, and the biggest barrier was overcoming the barrier of requiring the pilot medical. And we overcame that, but it was literally a 20-year effort. And I realized it as Jessica was talking, that how amazing we became very jaded, as I said. And a lot of us just wanted the whole issue to go away, quite frankly. You get a little bit worn down by the bureaucracy, but I'm so glad sitting here today that we didn't, that the light sport pilot and the light sport aircraft rule came to be, and people like Jessica have had the opportunity to enter aviation. It's just really inspiring to me and really uplifting, and that's why I wanted to be here today and share this moment with Jessica.
Right, wonderful. Jessica, what's it like out at the airport when you walk out to the airport? What kind of reactions do you get?
I get all sorts of reactions from, people, their jaws dropping to, are you really going to fly that thing? And for me, it's just it makes it all the more enjoyable when I go out to the airport, especially showing up at airports where people don't know about me. And just to be able to fly in, I flew into it, my first fly out, which was in Casa Grande, and I flew the air coupe out there, and I remember landing, and a whole golf cart with photographers rolled up and started taking pictures. So they were pretty shocked about the fact that I was flying out to my first fly out in Casa Grande, Arizona.
Has that ever embarrassed you that people come up and take photos of you and remark about you?
No, I have come a long way from when I first when I was younger. I actually wasn't very comfortable with the fact that I was different, and it's very difficult for anyone growing up to be different. But one of the biggest steps I took was the first day of 8th grade. I decided I would no longer wear fake arms to school. And I walked to the bus stop. I went to a regular public school, and I remember feeling lighter and more empowered and freer than I ever felt. And I walked on the bus, and the bus door shut. And as the bus door shut, I promised myself I would never again wear fake arms to school. And to this day, they're in the closet. And for me, that was a big step towards accepting who it is I am and realizing that, not everyone's going to be accepting of it, but that doesn't matter. And so for me, flying is an incredible, empowering, that same feeling of empowerment, freedom, and feeling weightless.
Wouldn't it be easier if you used the arms?
Not necessarily, because it's very natural for me. Right now I'm messing with my shoe down here because I'm gesturing with my feet. It's so natural. My brain is wired to my feet, and with adaptation, we learn to adapt with whatever we're given, and this is how I've had my whole life, and this is how I've lived my life. So for me, gesturing with my right foot right now is just as natural as it would be for you or anyone else. So yes.
This morning, Jessica appeared at Women in Aviation and did a little talk this morning and did a demonstration of tying her shoes. But the reason that you did that demonstration was because of how you felt on the playground and needed to tie your shoes as a little girl.
Yes. One of the challenges is that as a little girl was learning how to tie my laces. I had to learn that I had to have both feet free to be able to tie my laces, and I put one shoe in front of me at a time and did the bunny ears and tied, but then I also realized that it had to be loose enough so I could slip my foot back into my shoe. And so the same thing was true on the very first challenge of flight training, was how to buckle the seatbelt, and this was a 4-point seatbelt in the air coupe. And so I stood up and I stood on the top of that seat, and as I stood there, I actually buckled all the components together and I loosened the straps, then I slipped in and put the shoulder strap over my left shoulder with my right foot, the same with my left foot, and I tightened the lap belt with my toes and my heel and pulled it snugly in place, and Glenn got in and he was impressed. So, but I realized I learned that it's important to think outside the shoe.
Yes, that was that she came up with today, to think outside the shoe. And we'd agreed with, for women, that's even better too, because the women and their shoes. So tell me about Able Flight. There's a reason you're wearing your t-shirt today.
Able Flight was a phenomenal program, and they actually, a nonprofit, and they help to help people with disabilities learn how to fly. And Charles Stites came up to me, actually he called me up and he mentioned to me about Able Flight, and I was immediately hooked when he mentioned that, and I ended up meeting a lot of pilots, and they encouraged me, and they provided all the scholarship I needed to continue on with my flight training, which was, as you can imagine, it is somewhat difficult to have the funding to become a pilot, but with their help I was able to continue on with my sport pilot certification, and now can fly whenever I want to.